The Eviction and the Billionaire's Dilemma, 600 words. Emma Carter stared at the eviction notice in her hands, the hospital's fluorescent lights making the bold red letters bleed into her vision. 30 days. That's all she had before she and her 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, would be out on the streets. Her nursing salary barely covered groceries, let alone the skyrocketing rent. She slumped into the break room chair, exhaustion weighing her bones down like lead. Rough shift? Dr. Evelyn Hayes stood in the doorway, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Emma quickly folded the notice, but Evelyn's gaze lingered. You've been picking up extra shifts for months. Ask when's the last time you took a day off? Can't afford days off, Emma admitted before she could stop herself. Evelyn's pager buzzed. But before leaving, she said, "We'll talk soon. I might have a solution for you." Across the city, Lucas Grayson paced his penthouse office, his grandfather's will burning a hole in his conscience. Marry within 6 months, or lose everything. The irony wasn't lost on him, his grandfather, who'd ignored him his entire childhood, now demanded he value family. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Dr. Hayes called. Says she has a proposal. Meeting tomorrow. Lucas frowned. What could a hospital director want with him? The next day, Emma sat across from Lucas in a sterile conference room, her heart pounding. He was impossibly handsome tall, with dark hair, piercing green eyes, and a presence that filled the room. I have an unconventional proposition, Evelyn began. Lucas needs a wife. Emma needs financial security. A 2-year marriage of convenience could solve both problems. Emma's face burned. You can't be serious. Lucas studied her, his gaze calculating. What would the terms be? Separate lives, Evelyn said. No intimacy, no emotions, just mutual benefit. When they were alone, Lucas turned to her. This isn't how I imagined my day going. Emma laughed nervously. This morning I was worried about rent. Now I'm discussing marriage with a billionaire. Something flickered in his eyes. There would be rules. This is strictly business. But when their hands brushed as he passed her a pen, a spark traveled up Emma's arm, leaving her breathless. Lucas felt it too. His voice dropped. Professional only. Emma nodded, but her traitorous heart wondered what if it wasn't. The lawyer's office was too quiet. Emma stared at the prenuptial agreement, the dense legal language swimming before her eyes. 2 years, no intimacy, separate bedrooms. The terms were clear, but her hands trembled as she held the pen. No physical contact clause is explicit, the lawyer said, adjusting his glasses. Any breach voids the financial agreements. Lucas sat across from her, his expression unreadable. He'd dressed impeccably, a charcoal suit that cost more than Emma's yearly salary. But his knuckles were white where they gripped the armrest. Any questions? He asked, voice cool. Emma had 1,000. What happens if I fall for you? What happens if you fall for me? Instead, she asked, what about Sophie? She's 6. She won't understand. Lucas's gaze softened, just for a second. We'll tell her I'm your friend helping out. When she's older, we'll explain. Something warm flickered in Emma's chest. He cares how she feels. She signed the papers before she could overthink it. Lucas's penthouse was a glissant steel fortress in the sky. Sophie pressed her face against the floor-to-ceiling windows, giggling as the city lights twinkled below. We're living in a castle. Emma's stomach twisted. This isn't ours. None of this is real. Lucas appeared in the doorway, having changed into a simple black sweater that made his eyes look impossibly greener. Sophie, want to see your room? Sophie gasped when he led her to a pastel pink Ahama canopy bed. Shelves of books and a stuffed elephant waiting on the pillow. This is mine? Lucas crouched to her level. All yours. Emma's throat tightened. Who is this man? That night, after Sophie was asleep, Emma found Lucas in the kitchen, pouring whiskey into a crystal glass. You don't have to pretend with me, she said quietly. He stiffened. Pretend what? That this isn't weird? She gestured. Between them, we're strangers. Now we're married. Lucas exhaled, rolling the glass between his palms. It's business. Right? Business. Emma bit her lip. But Sophie thinks you're a hero, and heroes don't ignore their wives at dinner. His jaw clenched. What do you want from me? Everything. The thought shocked her, She stepped closer, inhaling his scent whiskey and cedar. Don't shut us out. For a heartbeat, Lucas looked hungry. Then he stepped back. Good night, Emma. Alone in her designated bedroom, Emma stared at the ceiling. This was a mistake. But when she closed her eyes, all she saw was Lucas's face when he'd smiled at Saphiriel and unguarded. Nothing like the ice-cold billionaire from the papers down the hall. Lucas lay awake, his skin burning where Emma's sleeve had brushed. His wrist. Professional. Boundaries. Rules. But rules couldn't explain why. For the first time in years, he dreamed of something other than darkness. The charity gala glittered around them, a sea of diamonds and champagne flutes. Emma adjusted the strap of her borrowed designer gown, hyper-aware of Lucas's hand resting at the small of her back. Relax, he murmured against her ear, his breath warm on her neck. You're doing fine. She forced a smile for the investors circling them, but her skin burned where Lucas touched her. 3 weeks of playing the dutiful wife had left her restless, her body betraying her with every accidental brush of his fingers. When a waiter passed with a tray of champagne, Lucas reached for a glass, and his hand grazed Emma's bare shoulder. A jolt of electricity shot through them both. Emma gasped. For a terrifying second, she felt Lucas's exhaustion, the crushing weight of sleepless nights, the ache behind his ribs that had nothing to do with business. Lucas jerked back as if burned, his champagne flute shattering on the marble floor. Silence rippled through the crowd. Clumsy, Lucas lied smoothly, flashing a practiced smile. But his eyes wild, panic locked onto Emma's dot. In the penthouse elevator, the air between them crackled. What the hell was that? Lucas hissed. Emma pressed her palm to the cold metal wall, steadying herself. You felt it too. Impossible. But when the elevator lurched, sending Emma stumbling into his chest, Lucas caught her wrist sand. It happened. Again, heat, light. A flood of him rushing into Hertha bitter coffee he'd drunk that morning. The tension in his shoulders from a 14-hour workday. The sharp loneliness he buried under spreadsheets and mergers. Lucas's breath hitched. Stop. I'm not doing it, Emma whispered. The elevator doors opened. Lucas practically dragged her into the penthouse, slamming the door behind them. Sophie was asleep at the kitchen island, her cheek smushed against a half-finished coloring book. Lucas froze. Why is she? Mrs. Lawson lets her stay up on Fridays, Emma said, gently scooping Sophie into her arms. The little girl murmured, but didn't wake. Lucas watched them, his expression unreadable. When Emma returned from tucking Sophie in, she found him pouring 2 fingers of whiskey with shaking hands. Splain, he demanded. Emma took the glass from him and deliberately let their fingers touch. The connection flared again. Brighter this time. Lucas's pain a stabbing migraine, the phantom ache of old scars flooded her. Instinctively, Emma pressed her palm to his forehead. The pain lifted. Lucas's eyes flew open. My headache gone, Emma finished, stunned. They stared at each other. In the dim kitchen light, Lucas's gaze dropped to her lips. This wasn't part of the deal, he whispered. Emma's pulse roared in her ears. I know. Then his mouth crashed into hers. The kiss was fire and desperation. Lucas's hands tangling in her hair as he backed her against the counter. Emma clutched at his shoulders. Every nerve alight, a whimper escaped her when he broke away. Rules. Lucas panted, forehead pressed to hers. We had rules. Emma traced his lower lip with her thumb. Screw the rules. His restraint shattered. Later, in the tangled sheets of Lucas's bed, Emma traced the scar along his ribs, a childhood injury he'd never mentioned. You healed this, he said hoarsely. When you, earlier, the pain's gone. Emma stiffened. That's not possible. Lucas caught her wandering hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. Neither is this. Aside, the city lights blurred as rain streaked the windows. Somewhere between the whispered confessions and the way Lucas's heartbeat synced with hers under the covers, Emma realized their contract was the least dangerous thing about this arrangement. The morning after, Emma woke to an empty bed and the scent of Lucas's cologne lingering on the sheets. Her body still hummed with the memory of his touch, the way his hands had memorized every curve. Think the whispered words against her skin that defied every rule they'd set. A note rested on the pillow. Emergency board meeting. Don't leave the penthouse today. The command sent a chill down her spine. Lucas stood at the head of the boardroom table, his usual composure frayed at the edges. The 12 members of the Knight Industries board watched him with varying degrees of skepticism. Victoria Hartwell, his grandfather's oldest ally, tapped her manicured nails against the polished mahogany. You missed 3 calls from the Singapore investors yesterday? And now you're pushing for this? Medical charity project? She scoffed. Since when do you care about rural clinics? Lucas clenched his jaw. He could still feel Emma's hands on him, the way her touch had seared through his exhaustion like sunlight. Since I realized our tech could save lives instead of just making profits. Richard Blackstone, a bulldog of a man with a perpetual sneer, leaned forward. Rumor has it your new wife is behind this sudden change of heart. A nurse, isn't she? Room went still. Lucas's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Leave her out of this. Victoria smirked. Oh, so it's true. The great Lucas Grayson, brought to heel by enough.
Oh, Lucas slammed his palms on the table.
The lights flickered. A glass of water shattered. Silence. He didn't remember storms following him before Emma. Emma paced the penthouse. Laughter from the next room doing little to ease her dread. The TV played a news segment about last night's gala slow-motion clip of Lucas pulling her close, his thumb brushing her hip in a way that was not platonic. Mommy, why's your face all red? Sophie asked, poking her head in. Emma quickly changed the channel. Allergies. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number, Mrs. Grayson. We should talk. Your husband's condition is of great interest to us. Emma's blood ran cold. Victoria Hartwell. Lucas returned to find Emma waiting in his study. The message displayed on her phone. She knows, Emma whispered. Lucas crushed the phone in his hand. She suspects. There's a difference. Lucas. Emma grabbed his wristband. The connection flared again. This time, she saw flashes. A lab. A child strapped to a table. Pain. So much pain. She recoiled. What was that? Lucas looked haunted. My childhood. The pieces clicked together his scars, his distrust, the way he'd flinched the first time Sophie hugged him. Your grandfather experimented on you, Emma breathed. Lucas's silence was answer enough. That night, as rain lashed the windows, Lucas traced the freckles on Emma's shoulder like constellations. They'll come for you now, for Sophie. Because of what you can do, Emma turned to face him. Then we fight. You don't know what they're capable of. I know what we're capable of. She pressed her palm to his chest, letting their connection surge golden and warm and terrifying in its power. Lucas kissed her like a drowning man. Somewhere in the city, Victoria Hartwell dialed a number. The asset is active, and the girl, she's just like him. The black sedan pulled up to the penthouse at dawn. Emma watched from the window as 4 men in dark suits stepped out, their movements too synchronized to be ordinary security. Lucas. Her voice cracked as she shook him awake. They're here. He was on his feet in an instant, his body thrumming with a tension Emma had never seen before. The air around them grew heavy, charged like the moment before lightning strikes. Take Sophie to the safe room, he ordered, pulling on a shirt. Don't come out until The front door exploded inward. Victoria Hartwell strode through the smoke, her heels clicking against the marble. Really, Lucas? Hiding your family like common criminals? Sophie whimpered behind Emma, her small fingers digging into her mother's leg. You don't touch them. Lucas's voice was barely human, a growl that made the walls vibrate. Victoria smiled. We just want to run some tests. It's like grandfather used to. Emma felt the exact moment Lucas snapped. The window shattered outward as an invisible force surged from him, sending Victoria's men crashing into the walls. But Victoria only laughed, pulling a sleek device from her pocket. Predictable. A high-pitched whine filled the air. Lucas collapsed, convulsing Daddy. Sophie screamed. Emma's vision went white. The explosion came from within her wave of pure energy that tore through the penthouse. Victoria's device melted in her hands as Emma's healing power reversed direction, becoming something else entirely. You hurt my family. Emma didn't recognize her own voice. Victoria stumbled back, her perfect hair smoking. Impossible. The gene was only in the Grayson bloodline. Sophie's tiny hand slipped into Emma's. The connection that formed between them was brighter than anything before, a conduit of raw power that flowed through mother and daughter alike. Lucas rose behind Victoria, his eyes glowing faintly gold. You forgot one thing. He grabbed Victoria's shoulder. Family isn't about blood. Light erupted. When the authorities arrived, they found Victoria and her men unconscious, their memories curiously blank. The official statement would later call it an electrical surge, but in the wreckage of the penthouse, Lucas held Emma and Sophie close, his voice raw. I'm sorry. I should have told you. Shut up, Emma whispered, pressing her forehead to his. The bond between them pulsed warmly, knitting together his bruises, her burns. Sophie's scrapes. Sophie giggled suddenly, holding up a sparking finger. Look, I can do it too. Lucas's breath caught. For the first time in his life, the power didn't feel like a curse. 1 year later. The ribbon-cutting ceremony for the first Grayson Carter Medical Center was bathed in sunlight. Reporters clamored for quotes about the billionaire's sudden philanthropic streak, but Lucas only had eyes for two. People in the crowd, Emma, now head of nursing, winked at him over a giggling Sophie's head. The little girl's hands were smeared with chocolate cake, her eyes alight with mischief. That night, as they lay tangled in new sheets in their rebuilt home, Lucas traced the wedding band on Emma's finger, the real one, exchanged in a quiet ceremony. 3 months prior, no more contracts, he murmured. Emma turned her head to kiss his palm, the familiar warmth flowing between them. Just this. Outside, the city lights glittered like promises kept.